Happy to have Jeff Howe with us tonight and all year. For the second straight year, Jeff Howe from the Athletic Boston is going to be our Patriots Insider. Great to have you back. Totally learned a lot from you in 2018 and really excited we can do it again.
I'm really excited too. I loved working here.
I want to get into your workflow because you get so detailed. So after a game, within 24, 48 hours, how much time are you spending watching that tape and breaking down what you're looking for that you've learned fans want to know more about?
Yeah, on average, I would say it takes about 2 hours to rewatch the game and then about another hour to chart all the stats that I have and then however long it takes to write the story. So, several more hours after that. But the things that I look for, coverage stats, how is each cornerback or defensive back performing? Stephon Gilmore, you really get to appreciate the type of year he had because when you look at the Excel sheet and everything, you realize over the last 2 months of the season, he didn't give up more than 2 catches a game. And then in the playoffs, he actually broke up more passes than he allowed to be completed. So he's getting his hands on the ball more often than the guy he's covering. The pressure stats is another thing that I found useful. Trey Flowers was a great pass rusher. Didn't always show up in the sack count, but we saw with the QB hits, the pressures, he got in the backfield after the quarterback literally twice more than anybody else on the team. And then that sort of helps you appreciate a guy like Kyle Van Noy. Similar type of situation, but he was their second best pass rusher the last 2 years. And without really doing that type of breakdown, it's hard to really appreciate the amount he got after the quarterback.
So at the end of the day, you got to appreciate the fact that Jeff's doing the dirty work for you. And that's why you follow him, and that's why you watch us here on Boston 25. Well, let's get into this year's team. A couple of issues that we should really hit out of the gate. You have been the biggest Jarrett Stidham fan throughout this training camp. So I may have to push back on you a little bit, but just your take on what we're going to see happen over the course of the next 10 days with Hoyer not having played. I mean, is it conceivable that Patriots may try to work out a trade with the Colts? Like, could you see Hoyer going there? And how do you think things are going to shake out here?
It is conceivable, and it's a total guess because it could be so simple as Belichick saying, all right, Stidham is right there with Hoyer, so there's no need to keep 3 quarterbacks.
But is he? I mean, come on.
Well,
as a
we
rookie,
don't know.
Is he really going to be able to step in and play a regular season game at the level that's expected?
I mean, probably not to Hoyer's level, but what's the drop-off? I mean, with how good the team is, think about it from a long-term perspective, too. Let's say the situation arises where Tom Brady goes down. We know he doesn't go down for a month. He has injuries that take a month, 6 weeks to get over. Other guys would have missed time. He's torn up his shoulder, sprained ankles, a bunch of nasty stuff with his ribs. And he's played through it all. So let's say this is a long-term type of situation. What benefits you in 2019 and beyond? Does it, do you tread water with a guy like Brian Hoyer? Or do you say, hey, you know what? The devastating injury, if Brady has one, isn't just going to come into play now. Maybe it comes into play with, does he want to come back next year? And then you get a great chance to evaluate a guy like Stidham.
So gut tells you they're going to go with 2 or 3 quarterbacks.
My gut tells me 3.
Me too.
But I certainly wouldn't put any of my own money on it. Okay,
let's move to the wide receiver position. Harris gets cut today, released injury designation. But how does that clear up the picture? Because what looked like a position of, I don't know, quote-unquote weakness, suddenly has shown us a little bit of depth.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. I remember that last practice down in Nashville, the final period of the day, Tom Brady went 3 of 8 because they took Jacoby Myers off the field, basically to make it harder on Brady. He goes 3 of 8 because he's throwing to guys like Dontrell Inman, who's already been released, Gunnar Olszewski, and Braxton Berrios. And there were communication breakdowns. There was pressure off the backup left tackle, Dan Skipper. The whole thing looked like a complete mess. The next day, Josh Gordon gets reinstated. A few days after that, Demaryius Thomas practices for the first time. So all of a sudden, it goes from how bad could it possibly get to I can't believe how good it looks. So Maurice Harris getting released, I think, probably just puts a little more definition. That's a settlement that he came to with the team. He wasn't going to be ready anyway. But you know that after Philip Dorsett, Harris probably wasn't going to crack that roster. And then it's like, what else do they do from there? Do you really want to carry a guy like Olszewski just to return punts? Probably not. I think you got your top 5.
You brought up an interesting point in one of your recent articles about the tackle position, Isaiah Wynn specifically. Not that you want him to play a full game preseason for risk of injury and other things, but how might this affect week 1? Because we haven't seen him go deep into a second half even, let alone a fourth quarter.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it was 19 snaps in his first preseason game and 25, give or take, in the second preseason game. So that plus the fact that he's only practiced in full for about 2 weeks, I don't think he's going to be ready for a full 100% of the snaps in week 1 against the Steelers. You're probably going to see a rotation. is that going to be a rotation with Dan Skipper or Cole Croston, who I think is catching up to Skipper on the depth chart there? Skipper's had a ton of problems so far in the preseason, giving up a ton of pressure to whichever quarterback he's protecting. And is it going to be 2 series for Wynn and then 1 for the backup? Is there going to be another guy that they try to claim off the waiver wire? And then spin it forward a little more. Week 2 down in Miami. If he's not ready for week 1, I mean, we know how hot it's going to be in week 2. So I think right now, realistically, I'm predicting there's going to be a tackle rotation for at least 2 weeks to start the season. But Wynn, there's a lot of reason to be excited about him because when he gets his hands on you, you don't get around him.
So Izzo's starting at tight end week 1. Is that where we're at this point?
It looks like it. I mean, I don't hate it, but I think it could be better. Ryan Izzo really impressed me last summer as a blocker, and this summer it's carried over. And now we've seen at times, especially in the preseason opener, he's kind of got some hands of stone. But in the second preseason game in Detroit or Nashville, he made that great catch down the left seam, took a huge hit on the legs, the Stidham throw. You know, that was impressive. He hung on to that ball. The catch he made on that Brady pass down by the goal line with 2 guys around him, including Eric Reed, who is a headhunter. I mean, that was a phenomenal catch. So if all of a sudden Ryan Izzo becomes a guy that the defense can't simply ignore, you know what? You're better than we probably thought you were going to be during this 4-game suspension for Ben Watson.
Last thing is this. We can't get away without talking about the Patrick Chung situation. Is there anything you can share with us? Details, updates, or just basic thoughts about what we've seen over the last 72 hours?
Well, it sounds like he's going to get his first chance, or at least his representation is going to get a first chance to go in front of the court on Wednesday. I would be surprised if this thing carries through and they end up finding him guilty. I mean, it seems like there's a whole lot of gray area. If I'm his defense attorney, I am poking a ton of holes in this investigation. I mean, I could see it going as well as it gets thrown out early. But, you know, again, if you kind of push this thing and it plays out over the long haul, I would be really shocked if he didn't beat this.
It's going to be a fun year. Jeff Howe from The Athletic Boston is going to be with us as our Patriots Insider, sometimes after a game, sometimes before a game. But no matter what, each week you're going to get a chance to get some of the insight of this guy who's deep inside what the Patriots are doing every week. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.